welcome to the Spooky Chris podcast. My name is Chris Ringler. I am an author, filmmaker, podcaster, blogger, and a half dozen other things, living in mid-Michigan. You can read my blogs, you can see info and links to my books, and get a better feel for who I am at my website, spookychris.com. So it doesn't take long in looking at the last year to see the devastation that this virus has had. You know, it's strange because we look at numbers. You know, we look at a number, you know, say the American number of over 500,000 people dead, and we get lost in the trees of it. We hear the number and we can't see it. It's one of those things where some numbers are just so big that the mind can't quite reckon with it. I mean, you know it's a lot, and it's a lot to come to terms with, the fact, you know, 500,000 plus dead. But you have to kind of see it, I think. And that's the thing with death, is that sometimes you have to see it to really kind of understand it. When my dad and I went, you know, for many years, my father and I would go to University of Michigan football games. My dad was an alum, I'm an alum now, and he'd get season passes, and we'd go to the home games. And at University of Michigan Stadium, they can fit 110,000 people in there. And it's interesting. I mean, it's a crazy sight, you know, and you can see it on the television, but being there is a whole different world, being amongst all of those people. And it's even, I generally am pretty okay with crowds, but if you sit and think about it, it can freak you out. I had that kind of a moment in New York City when I was walking in the middle of the day down in Times Square, you know, just thinking, like, realizing how many people are there. And, you know, if people everywhere, like, you're just in a crush of people. And it can become overwhelming. But even if you took Michigan Stadium with over 110,000 people at capacity, that's still only even if we didn't go with absolutely current numbers dead, that's still only a fifth. The town I grew up in is probably a town of, I don't know. It's hard because I'd have to look it up, like 15,000 maybe. I don't know. The city I live in now, Flint, Michigan, 110,000 is more than we have here, well above what we have here. An entire city of people. So when you say that we've lost over 500,000 people to the virus, I mean, to me, you're saying we've lost more than like 5.5 city of Flint. That's crazy. That's crazy to me. You know, cities like Chicago and such will get in the millions for how many people are there. But Flint's a big city. We were, you know, a bustling metropolis for a while. But it's not COVID and the dead from COVID I want to talk about, but like this idea of death. This is a weird time of year for me. 3 years ago, we lost my mom, and we're getting towards that date again. And it's rough because this whole, you know, we're almost to a point where it's almost a month and a half, maybe just a month of just a murderer's row of sorrow. Back when we lost my mom, 2 weeks later, my wife and I had to let go of a dog we had only had for 4 months. I mean, she was just a young thing. She's still a puppy, basically. But she had such an aggressive cancer that it was essentially eating her skull. And it was just horrible. And it would have been cruelty to make her suffer any further. But we lost her, within that month, and I think we're in a month and a half of when my mother-in-law died 2 years ago. So it's a lot. It's a lot just to kind of process all of it. And the last few years has been hard. We lost one friend to an overdose, another to just life. I don't even know if I ever heard how he died. His body just, he had a rough health time, and finally, his body just couldn't proceed. And then a couple of years ago, a guy I worked with for several years and that I'd known for many, many years, killed himself. And it's strange because when you're young, generally death is at arm's length. You'll have grandparents die. My grandfather died when I was 10. My grandmother when I was a late teenager. You'll have family members, but a lot of times they're not necessarily closer family members. It's not often that you have close people to you die. And even when you do, you don't quite grasp death and what it is. I think it's only by living that you start kind of realizing how much is gone when the person is gone and when you will be gone. As the older I've gotten, the more anxiety I have, reckoning with the idea of my own death. And now that I have a daughter, it's hard to kind of deal with that, and just the idea that all things end, and if they didn't, then what we have wouldn't mean as much. That's just the way it is. Things have to have a beginning and ending for them to kind of have meaning to us. The way our minds work, we can't reckon with infinity and with eternity. But it's hard, and it's strange. Gosh, last year I found out someone I'd known just for a brief period of time had killed herself. And it's strange because, sure, in my mind, she'll always be a teenager. A bright, funny teenager who did zines. I never, our friendship didn't go, wasn't meant to last. As friendships are, want to do. And all friendships aren't built to last, much like all relationships aren't built to last. You kind of, sometimes they teach you what they need to teach you in a short amount of time. But yeah, it's strange. It's like she's stuck in a time capsule. Always that kid. And I just happened upon finding out she had died, and had killed herself last year. She had gone on to be a poet of some renown, and married and taught and well loved, and it's gone. My one friend that had killed himself, he was a musician who was beloved in this city and in the South as well. He had several bands. He was one of those guys who had a career in music, but never broke through, which is that bitter truth about the arts, is that you can make money. You can even have something hit, like a story, a book, a song, a poem, a piece of art, a film. You can have it hit in that it impacts people, it connects with people, it's used for something. He had a song with a band he did that was used in at the time a popular was it WB or CW show, and yet he still never really had that breakthrough where he could just do that, and he was still able to perform, and he performed regionally and was taught and produced, but that has to be a heck of a thing to know you're that close to living that dream. And I mean, the thing is too about the arts is and that's, one of those things that I always kind of, when people are like, I want to write, one of the two things I want to, like, well, do it, because there's nothing stopping you but you. And two is you got to do it understanding that you're not, there's nothing on earth says you're going to be the next big thing, but there's nothing on earth says you won't be. We get caught up in, I want to write for a living. Well, you can. You probably won't be a creative writer for a living. And that's fine. But it's just strange because he's gone, and how he went is so strange. I think the last time I saw him, as he was walking, around town, and I pulled up to, at a light and kind of hollered at him, and we kind of said hey back and forth and waved for one another, and that was it. And he was gone not long after. Our friend that OD'd, I saw him a few days before he died. We had announced a guest for the horror convention we were doing that year, and a friend and I had gone to a screening of Exorcist because it was someone involved with The Exorcist that was going to be there. At our convention, that was the last time I saw him, and then he was gone a few days later. And my other friend, I texted with him, and then again a few days later I got a text from another friend and said that we'd lost him. And it's also strange because truly, I mean, it's, the absence feels so heavy, and when people are gone, they're just gone. When I think back to my mom, it was both blessing and curse. Mom entered home hospice in February. She had, just too many health problems. She'd had strokes that had started really pushing her down the hill. She was developing dementia, and her health had just reached a point where they put her in home hospice. And I remember my sister telling me, and there was like a big packet, and told you about what hospice was and what to expect, and it was one of many packets we got. God, I remember, just that whole time, and it seemed so just like, oh, well, it's home hospice, so, it's just basically it's having nurses come to her and stuff. So, okay, like, she's gonna have a nurse come to her, and they'd have her medication sent to her, and the doctor, could come out and see her if they need be, and okay. Well, and then they had a hospital bed brought out, like the full hospital bed. And they set that up on their kind of like a sun porch, and that's where Mom basically resided. As she, at first she wasn't bed bound, but it didn't take long, and it's so strange because the hospice folks, it was like it's like a sort of fortune telling, because they see things that you can't, because they're trained to see it. So, like, they saw my mom was declining in such a way that she's going to be bedbound. We need to get her that. They got her, oxygen. Anything she needed, they would get her. She had great nurses that would come out, and they would bathe her and change her, and got so that Mom needed that kind of help. My sister was amazing, and I was there as much as I could be, and my dad tried to hold it together. As things progressed and we got down to it, it must have, would have been in May. I'm not sure when in May. I took a leave from the job I worked. Essentially, I worked from home, but I stayed at my parents' house. I would come home long enough to shower and change and let the dog out. Our dog's out. We had two at the time, right? And then I would head right back there, and I would just stay with them. and I wasn't seeing my wife a whole lot. But she understood. She came out when she could to see Mom. I remember we took our big boy, Danger, who's a husky, and then our dog, our other husky at the time, Banshee, out to see Mom. And Banshee tried to climb into the bed with Mom, and Mom wanted that so bad, and it was so sweet. And it's hard because it's almost like they knew that their time was kind of coming to a close. Because we lost Banshee just a few weeks later. But seeing the sudden rapid decline of my mom was hard. She had started to see things that weren't there, over the last few years, and she was forgetting things. When I would call to talk to her, she'd been in the hospital several times and rehab. Physical. Well, it was elderly rehab. It was physical, but you had to stay there. But talking to her, I'd call, and she would just, as I'm talking to her, she'd just kind of drift off and stop talking. She's watching the television. Yep, yeah, okay. So there really wasn't much to say. And then, they brought out and we never used it. I understand why. Is part of the hospice that they bring out this memory book where it has you can kind of talk into it, write down memories and you can talk into it and stuff. And basically it's kind of to spur you on to hey, let's get some of these memories before you're gone. And it's just so much. It's so much. Because if you start doing that, you're admitting that they're going to leave you. I remember one of the last really good days we had with Mom is I brought my folks my father's 83, so they're from the World War II generation, and they're from a generation though, where they seem, shots my mom had polio. They just seem kind of a different world, a different time. And so they were big photograph people. Well, I mean that's what they had. They never took a lot of photos, but so I brought up the photos to go through at one point. So we can just kind of start going through them. And with the understanding that we're kind of looking for things for her eventual funeral. And it was, she was in her right mind, and we all had fun laughing at the pictures and looking at pictures of my sister and I as kids and her family, and it was good. It was that can be one of those hard things too, kind of going through all of that. But being able to do it with her, and to kind of have that context and the stories and all of that, it helped. But it was probably, the last really great day I can think of, with all of us together like that. Mother's Day was good, because right after Mother's Day she took the turn and really didn't even get out of bed. Towards the end there, like I said, they send packets and stuff, and there's a packet of what to expect, and they tell you kind of this is A, B, C, D. This is how this will go, and essentially, this is how they're going to die, and that's hard. Because you look over it and you're like, nothing like that's happening. They're fine. It's not, this obviously isn't going to happen this way bit by bit, her body started to shut down. She stopped eating. My father, I remember, was getting very upset and was insisting that they needed to put a tube, like a feeding tube, because Mom wasn't eating, and she wasn't ready to give up yet. And I had to pull the nurse aside and have her talk to my father to kind of let him know, this was the end. And they didn't know when it was. They'll give you it could be a matter of days, a matter of weeks, but this is the end. And then you kind of just have to wait it out. And we waited it out with her and watched as her body slowly shut down and discolored, as her basically from her extremities started to kind of lose circulation, and she slowly was dying. I remember so many times I would sit with her alone. And I would just take her hand and tell her that she could go, because I didn't want her going through this, because I can't imagine how hard it would have been. She had polio, she'd had so many health issues, and the idea of slowly dying like that with your body shutting down around you, I just didn't want her to go through it, and I just would tell her that she could go. That's all I wanted, was for her just to let go and to go. God, it was so bad. I even considered they would give her morphine. They had liquid morphine there for her pain. And when she was in pain, you'd give her like a drop or something, and I considered very long and very hard just giving her a little too much, just to let her go. And what that meant, I couldn't reckon with, because but yeah, when she went finally, I was sleeping on the porch at that point, just sleeping on the floor next to her, and I happened to get up. And in the end, we were able to be with Mom when she passed, my father, sister, and I. And it was strange watching as kind of the life just ran out of her. As the steam kind of ran out. And it's strange because you have to reckon with the fact that one moment they're there and then the next they're gone. It's strange, the difference. Whatever it is that makes us, whatever you want to call it, in its absence, it takes, someone who is a vibrant part of your life and just makes them, a past tense. And it was a strange flurry of activity, so we, when Mom died, we all kind of took some time with her and then had to call to have things kind of wrapped up, which is a strange kind of ending of the circus, where they come and they take the body and then you have to start planning the real end, the final end. And it's strange. And it was strange that a few weeks later we did it for our dog in a different kind of way. And it's awful being there at the end. It really is. But it's necessary, because you don't ever want the people you love to go alone. That's one of the awful side things of COVID, is so many of our loved ones have had to go alone. And because we don't know what comes next, if anything. If it's something, we just don't know. It has to be awful to go into it alone and unsure. And I get it, the people who have faith or in something or nothing, who have reached their kind of peace, there's nothing to fear, but there's still, for us who remain, there's that fear of what if, where did they go? Did they go anywhere? And the older you get, the more you become like a haunted house, full of the ghosts of all the people that you've lost. Some living, some dead. And you don't always get a chance to say goodbye. And even when you do, I mean, gosh, how do you sum everything someone means to you up? It's like trying to tell someone you love how much they mean to you when words can't. There are limits to what words can do. There are limits to what words can achieve, and sometimes they're just not enough. For me, I tried to use what kind of things I have at my disposal. I wrote a book for my mom as she was dying. I started it and finished it, and it's, oddly enough, became for her and for our dog Banshee. And I did the same for my wife's mother when she died. I wrote a book for her, which hasn't come out yet. Because it's the only way I could kind of try to capture the importance of these women to my life. I don't know how we ever come to terms with death, with the loss, with the ending of things. I don't know. I mean, there are days when breakups I had 30 years ago still hurt like they were just happened. There's people you lose and you never quite get over their loss. It's just the way it works. But we can't live in the ground with these people we love. We can't spend our full lives dwelling in the haunted house that we are. We have to learn to get out, because we have to live as much for them as for ourselves. We have to learn how to find peace in ourselves in this world that we can't always control. I mean, 3 years down the road and I still don't know that I've ever completely processed my mom's loss. I still think of the friends we've lost. It's strange. Like I say, we're all haunted in some way or another. And it breaks my heart for all of those that lost people during COVID, because so many of them were needless deaths that we just couldn't see our way through the maze of lies and nonsense to stand together to defeat it. The thing, though, in the end, is that all of these people are never gone completely. They're always with us. They live through our memories, through the things they've taught us, through their own deeds. What we do is we pay forward their gifts to us and plant their seeds so that maybe they can sprout and give others comfort and care. I know my mom gave me a whole lot. She was my biggest supporter for the longest time. And I hope someday that I can genuinely feel I made her proud in some way. You know, folks gotta kind of be proud of you because they're your parents, but you always want to hope that there would be a genuineness to it, that they would be surprised, that you would surpass what they had hoped for you. And I hope I find that someday. I think she would have gotten a kick out of our kiddo, something that we never thought was going to happen. But we're all falling stars, eventually destined to hit the earth, but hopefully someone sees us and remembers us. And I hope that for you, my friend, and I hope the stars in your sky lighten those dark nights when it seems as if everything's collapsing, because it's been a year of that. You take care, friend and traveler. Stay safe. We're not out of the woods yet. I will talk to you soon.